If I had $100,000, how would I build my hotel business in the United States? Most people think that you need millions of dollars, many crores to start a hotel. But if I had $100,000, heck, if I had even $10,000, here's how I would start my first hotel and my hotel business in the United States. First, find the property. Making sure that you get the right property is 50% the battle. There are many ways of identifying properties. On one side are the brokers. There are two kinds of brokers. There are large property consultants and brokers like CBRE, Knight Frank, and many others. And there's online websites like auction.com, Trexie, and many others. I would go on all of them, but most importantly, I would join every community possible, because understandably, some product or some inventory which is with the brokers, it has many takers, and clearly a lot more people who have more than $10,000 like you and me. So to that extent, we have to find other solutions. What would I do? What I did when I started Oyo. I would knock doors. I would go to every single motel I knew. I would build relationships with the owners, hear their stories, and find out where I could help. Chances are in 1 in 10 locations or 1 in 20 locations, you will find a family who want out, who don't want to run that hotel for the long time. They want to retire, they want to take some time for themselves. And that's where you can provide a support to the previous owners, to yourself, and create the hospitality business of your dreams. What would you do? Let's say today, on an average, if you want to buy an economy hotel, you'd get it for $50,000 a key. So if you want to buy a property which is very small, 20 or 30 rooms, that's $1 million to $1.5 million. So now you'd say, Ritesh, you just said you're going to build this business with $10,000. How am I going to come up with $1 million or $1.5 million? First and foremost, you can get between 60 to 80% of what is called finance. Financing comes in three forms. Financing is basically a loan. There are three ways of getting a loan. One, go to a bank. Big banks won't talk to you for this size. So go to one of the regional banks. There are many regional banks. There is PNC Bank, there's the American Pride Bank. There's so many other banks across the US. You'll find somebody near. Second, SBLA loans. There's a very popular concept in the US, which are small business loans. This is run by the Federation. It's guaranteed by the federal government of the US and helps new businesses get started. But my favorite is a third, owner financing. A lot of places, the owners may be willing to help you finance if you give them a slightly better value. So the property was available for $45,000 a key. If you pay 47, 48 or 49, there will be owners who will be willing to help you with owner financing for a 20, 30-year term. That takes care of 80%. So now you're down from 1 million to 200,000, because 800,000 is paid by either the regional bank or by one of the SBA loans or by owner finance. Now, in this $200,000, I would find partners. Good thing is, every other person you would have met, the first 9 people who are not willing to sell their property, they are all willing to invest, or most of them are willing to invest. So I'd go to each one of them and say, we met, you know I'm a hardworking professional, I can make a difference. Would 9 of you be willing to put $20,000 each? More often than not, you'll find people willing to support you if you have the right property at the right deal, because the investor thinks, gosh, at this deal, it's easy to make money if somebody is going to work hard. They have seen the experience. Second, the financing is arranged. Third thing is the equity. So if 9 people give you $20,000 each, or let's say $22,000 each, you cover $190,000, and that gets you to $10,000 of your own equity check. The ownership you may have in your property may be a combination of two things. First, your investment will be like 10%. You will get the return of the 10%. But what will be even stronger is you will receive the excellent upside of being able to deliver management fees. Typically, you can charge a couple of percentage of the top line and some percentage of the bottom line as management fees, which is an additional income you would have on top, which may increase your income. If you were going to make X income, you'll make 2x as an out. Let's now talk about I have found the property, got the money, how do I run it? Biggest mistake I see first time property owners make, if they are not people who have worked in the hotels earlier, is they try to hire a manager first and expect the manager to run the property. You will fail. Make sure your first property, at least for the first few months, you run yourself. You need to know the nitty-gritties. How do the check-ins happen? If there's a mold, how do you fix it? How do you get the HVAC at the lowest cost possible? How do you ensure your cleaners stay with you for a long time? How do you ensure you can work with a brand and still always pass the grades? A lot of these are important focus areas, and hence these 100 days, if you can't run the business yourself, there's a realistic chance that you will lose the equity money from your investors and the owner will repossess their property, because remember, they are the lender in your property anyway. I'm just giving you the worst case. But if you run it yourself, here's what it can do. Typically, per property, if you're buying it for $50,000, it can make an NOI, net operating income, of roughly $5,000 to $6,000. $5,000 of net profit per room for a property which is roughly 30 rooms large is 150,000. For simplicity, let's take a 20-room property. For a 20-room property, it's $100,000. You take a loan of 80% for buying this property, that is 800,000 of loan. At 6%, that's $48,000. You are left with $52,000. Of 52, let's say you keep 5 to 7% for FF&E, which is furniture, fixture and equipment for the future, for maintenance. So you're left with $45,000. Of the $45,000, let's say you have a management fee of another $5,000. So you're left with $40,000 and you make 10% of it, which is $4,000 to $5,000. So you can make $10,000 from one property. The story that I just mentioned is not an example, it's not an illustration. It's a real story of one of our owners, Bob Bai, from Oklahoma City. He now has grown from one hotel to three. He's increased his equity, he's increased his profits, he's able to make annually roughly $60,000 for himself as a cash income, and beyond that, he's also built 3 properties, and all these 3 properties are creating disproportionate amount of value. This is how I built a business from $10,000 in the US. If I had more, I would buy a higher stake. If I had $100,000, I'd buy 50% stake. But regardless of where you start, you buy a start. And once you buy a start, you can multiply and become the 50, 100 hotel owner or a few thousand portfolio owner in times to come. I wish you all the very best.